Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. If you're watching this live on LinkedIn on today, September 26th, or watching my playbacks, or watching us on YouTube. My name is Dan Taylor, and I'm joined today by my colleague and friend Holly, both from SALT.agency. And today we're going to be talking about AI overviews, specifically the SaaS user journey and how these can be disruptive. There's a lot of conversation, obviously, in the industry at the moment around what was SGE, now the AI overviews, how they're going to affect search, how they're going to affect traffic. But what I want to really discuss today with Holly is how not necessarily just the impact on traffic and keywords, but how they're going to impact the kind of a B2B and SaaS user journeys. Holly, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Dan.
So just kind of get things kicked off with kind of things. Holly, I know because you've been in the industry a lot shorter time than I have, because I'm quite long in the tooth and reaching over a decade now. This is really your first, because I mean, you weren't here for Mobile Geddon, you wasn't here for the high-end COVID peaks of travel and all the rest of it across different industries. How do you feel about AI overviews coming in at the moment? Because this is your first real major market disruption moment.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it sort of throws up almost like a whole new way of looking at SEO and marketing strategy when you think of user journeys and that traditional user journey. And now it has really had a big impact as it's taking over the search real estate of Google. It's become this thing where we now have to, almost like before we were trying to optimize for Google search, and now we have to optimize for this thing within Google search. So it's kind of getting very meta and in depth, and it feels like it's just going to continue as more and more AI tools are sort of uncovered over time. So what are your thoughts on the traditional user journey and then how AI overviews will impact that in terms of specifically SaaS searches?
I think for the most part, SaaS user journey, SaaS funnel marketing has been quite well established now for a number of years, whether or not that's built on erroneous misconceptions or myths or just what's worked previously. But the standard kind of playbooks out there are you've got the research phase, obviously, at the top with your top of funnel content. You'll have different segments and ICPs, which will be reached out to through ebooks, through support guides. There'll be the very standard SaaS comparison blog, which exists on all SaaS websites between them and competitors. Well, obviously, they're listed as number one. And then also all your top of funnel marketing really has stemmed a journey. And with AI overviews, I think this has the ability to almost create. To these the Marvel films and TV series as an example, there's almost going to be new timelines coming off these journeys, where previously people would, I don't know, search for something along the lines of best CDN. You probably get the likes of G2 popping up. In more recent times, your Reddits and Quoras, and you'd have a very standard projection of where the user would then go from there. They'd either go down a brand funnel, they'd go down funnels based on their different either software integration needs or the different benefits and features they're looking for. But AI can really, I mean, the AI overviews especially have a potential to bypass that and introduce content and I'm hesitant to say recommendations, but introduce brands and other concepts which might not have had as many eyes in traditional search because they might have been on page 2, page 3, but now they're top and prominent. So that it has potential to alter that kind of user journey and understand the upstream element of the funnel.
Of course, it's changing all the time. Like even week by week, AI is the AI overviews are improving and changing. I've noticed how, I've asked some very specific questions in sort of previous months, and it's tried to give me the answer, but it's not quite reached it. But now it's actually giving me a more detailed answer. It's getting much better at finding those answers. So, what do you think are the two main ways that AI overviews are going to be affecting SEO campaigns, and how do you think this will influence user behavior?
I think the two core ways for me are downstream and upstream. So from a downstream perspective, similar how we featured snippets that introduced the notion of a zero-click search, that users could perform a query, go to the search results page, have that satisfied by a featured snippet or some other Google Fandango at the top, like a calculator or a conversion piece, and not have to click on a site. An AI overview has the same potential to do this. Kevin Indig has just done a study which shows that even if you're cited in an AI overview, those clicks actually drive less clicks than a traditional position one, which makes sense given another study which was done by SEO Clarity. I think it's about 96% of all AI overviews showing over a 1 million keyword corpus were focused on informational versus navigational and transactional. And we're going to see this more, and I'm calling this the downstream part of the funnel, because we're still going to get impressions in Search Console, either ranking traditionally or being cited in the AI overview itself. If we weren't traditionally on page one, we'll obviously see an increase in average rank and probably a huge increase in impressions from that. But if the AI overview is able to satisfy the reason or the need for that query, it will cause that zero click. Secondly, I'm going to say this is kind of more of the downstream, or the upstream, I should say, kind of thing. And this is again going back to how it will interact with and modify that overall user journey. So, as I said previously, it'll introduce new brands, introduce new concepts. It'll take users on a different path to where it previously was. So, like I said, historically, you might have had G2 or your Reddit's ranking the main positions, and relatively, I mean, okay, I won't say Reddit is relatively stable, but G2 and the likes and Clutch and stuff, they're relatively stable. They may update once every few months, but you kind of know where you stand with it. You know what list you're on. You'll know how users are going to then interact, and you can kind of start optimize that. With something much more volatile, like an AI overview, and not understanding the change frequency of it yet, and the fact that you might be introducing different brands, different competitors, even different concepts, or things that people might not even have even considered yet in their user journey at different points that they usually discover further along. It takes people off on a different tangent, and we almost have to be prepared to either spread ourselves thinner across multiple different brand touch points or understand which queries higher up that kind of journey path are being affected. Because if someone has taken off that path, we're going to notice it downstream when it gets to that kind of final stage or bottom of funnel queries where conversion happens, because people aren't going to necessarily get to that path in the same volume or at all.
Yeah, I think with SaaS in particular, there seems to be, at least in my experience, this kind of constant revision of competitors, of search competitors, and who are our competitors now, and new competitors coming in. So it's changing all the time. New brands are popping up. AI overview is going to pick up on that, and it just, dilutes the market even more and makes it, it does pose more of a challenge. And going back to the zero click issue, this is obviously, we've had those of us who work with SaaS clients have had a lot of questions about how we can optimize with AI overviews in mind. So naturally, with zero click being the main thing, the main sort of threat around getting clicks on search, what do you think like SaaS companies can, and businesses and SEO agencies can do to strategize against those zero click issues?
I think it really comes down to what SEO is as a function, and understanding that historically we've always, like, SEO has always been judged by clicks, by impressions, by rankings. It's a set of metrics which are almost 2 decades old, and given users, obviously, I mean, the concept of multimodal search is more prevalent than ever. Users are going on LinkedIn, especially in the SaaS space with B2B. If you believe Reddit advertising, which they're pushing heavily on LinkedIn at the moment, there's more B2B decision makers looking on Reddit now more than ever. I'd love to see the actual data behind that. But people aren't just going to Google anymore. They're going to third-party platforms. They're going to other forums. Things like Stack Overflow are potentially being trusted more and more as well, which, I mean, Stack Overflow not being seen as much in search right now, I think it's a good thing, but especially around SEO tech queries. But understanding that means that we might not be going after the major head terms anymore. It's about understanding your ICP, understanding the segment, getting closer with the product teams at SaaS companies, getting closer with the SDRs, getting closer with brand, really working and actually understanding what the value proposition and benefits are of the products, understanding how they help certain segments, then understanding how those segments and ICPs are actually searching, what their discovery journey is, and targeting those touch points. It's almost like doing an SEO swap at the moment. I'd probably say look for the opportunities which aren't being served by AI overviews at the moment and understand which ones are being affected, and almost kind of take a notion of we're going to target this, but there will be disruption, but we will still want to be present. And then there's the secondary side of this all, which is kind of your generative engine optimization, your geo. Is it possible to get into those AI overviews? Because even though they do drive less clicks, according to recent data, being present in them means somebody else isn't. So you almost have a displacement element, and also being present in them to an extent means you can control the narrative and control misinformation. And for a non-branded query, that'll potentially be. I think for non-branded queries, it'll potentially be easier because the way that cohort analysis works and looking for the most common interpretations of things, Google can work with that. I always feel branded queries are slightly harder because my working assumption is always that Google will try to provide a balanced overview. So if you type in, I know, brand X reviews, I think regardless of what you do, Google will always find something with negative sentiment and present to you to kind of give that balanced answer. I think Bing ages ago started doing a pros and cons thing in the search results. I'm not 100% if they're still doing that, but they had some special cards that did that. So it's really kind of taking SEO to more of like a product, to a kind of more of an integrated marketing channel, as opposed to just being the thing that does Google.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is interesting as well how, I mean, SEO has always been like a thing about like flexibility, but I feel like AI overviews and other AI tools are changing so quickly and constantly that we're having to keep our methods and our strategies really, really flexible. Has there been any, like, obviously, you know, an SEO is relatively new for me compared to you. So is what's been the sort of previous challenges that SaaS has faced in terms of search?
I think really it's been Google's better understanding of how to actually modify those user journeys. I'd probably say SaaS is quite heavily an informational query set. There's a lot of research that goes into it before then once people kind of commit to either a freemium sign up, a demo or a trial or something, they may do 2 or 3, but then the search journey will definitely refine and probably be more brand product focused. But it's kind of like a fat-headed funnel. It's more like a mushroom in a funnel. Huge toadstool at the top of the information, and then it narrows down quite quickly once you find a certain subset or segment of brands or products you want to look at. I think Google's definitely had a little bit more focus around things. I remember John Mueller, I think it was earlier this year, when he was talking about one of the content updates, kind of cited that the whole notion of having, oh, here's the 10 best HR softwares published by, I don't know, danshr.com, and shock horror, danshr.com and the 10 best HR softwares lists Dan's HR as number 1, has War and Peace on it, and then the other 9 are piecemeal, no links, redirect stuff, very like token efforts. Google's getting, I feel, has a much better understanding of things like beneficial purpose. So when Google looks for article now, as opposed to probably 2-3 years ago, is the beneficial purpose of an article to provide a balanced review of 10 different HR softwares, or is the beneficial purpose of that to rank for the keyword best HR softwares? And those are two very different things when it comes to user satisfaction. So that's kind of been impactful. But I think Google's always had, I think, a bit of a tech knowledge issue. So I go back to I think it was 2017, around that time. I'm actually going to double check that so I can be accurate with that. I think it was the DIN cyber attack in October 2016. I was working with a CDN provider, and people researching DDoS, distributed denial of service mitigation, and CDNs and all that were quite technical at the time. It was all dev documents, all the sort of stuff DevOps and engineers would be wanting to search for. It was very kind of a highbrow level. The minute this cyber attack happened and most of the public internet went down in America, even to the point the White House has to actually make a statement on this to actually kind of say, like, guys, don't worry, Twitter's down, Amazon's down, Reddit's down, don't panic. The people searching for this kind of stuff weren't the DevOps and engineers. They were people like my dad. They were average Joes. They were non-technical people, and Google very quickly flipped the SERPs, and then they never went back to being as technical. And I think over a lot of different SaaS areas and a lot of different kind of sectors in that way, there has been that kind of breakdown where you'll put your traditional 1 to 10 has no longer been that it's the best 1 to 10. It's been here's a mix of different companies, here's a mix of articles, here's a mix of this to try and create that more balanced SERP. And it's definitely done that much earlier in like retail, and it's definitely done that with brand. But I think it's definitely been working with that with a more of a SaaS SERP, especially over the last sort of 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, you do notice that there, when it comes to sort of SaaS related informational things, you do get a lot of SaaS informational pages, and alongside more fully informational blogs, webzines, and forums. It seems like you kind of compete. You're not just competing with fellow brands. You're competing with other informational sources, which makes it a lot harder because then Google's got to decide who's the most who's the most authoritative type of source for that query, as well as the brand itself.
Yeah, and it goes back to that source type element as well, which Google has, in the sense that if TechCrunch publishes a neutral article on a certain topic versus a tech company, an actual brand publishing an article on the same topic, that level of neutrality of like, this is a commercial entity publishing a thought on something versus a neutral entity which covers news publishing a news topic, that has an element of weighing as well. And going back to one of the early things I said about the classic SEO metrics of like focusing on, I mean, even third-party metrics, which are like DA and domain rating and number of keywords and number of pages, you can't change your source type and you can't change your purpose of different things. So it's going to come all into play. And I think SaaS is definitely seeing that now. And with Google like increasing AI overviews, especially the last couple of weeks, Google's related brand featurette that comes through, that kind of being more visible, being more optimized across your entire online discovery journey and understanding those touch points. Like I said, it's almost like we need to go back and do that SEO swap across SaaS. It's going to be different for every SaaS company, different brand. And yeah, we can't, for me, it's an exciting time with this because it's a disruption, which means every time there's a disruption, there's opportunity, and there's first mover advantage, and there's the actual ability to claim more market share, more visibility, and grow in your wider TAM. Oh, I think Holly's frozen. No, it's fine. I'll continue rambling on.
Sorry about
Oh,
that.
oh, you're
Continue.
back. No worries. You just saved me from rambling on a little bit more. See, I kind of think from here, like building off what I just kind of said, and with like the SEO sport side of things, we need to kind of almost revisit the SEO playbook for SaaS. And if that goes back to the metrics we always look at, I mean, I'm not ever going to disparage traffic and rankings and things like that. For me, rankings and traffic are a good symptom of a healthy SEO campaign, a symptom of things working. Ultimately, the objective is MRR, ARR, sign up, subscriptions, reducing churn. And the churn reduction comes from matching the marketing message to what the product can actually deliver and creating a realistic user value expectation. In that, if you say a product can do X, Y, Z better than I don't know what the other product, actually follow through with it and reduce that churn. Don't say you've got a product in the pipeline when you don't, and yeah, it's about kind of don't oversell, otherwise bad churn elements come and that can reduce brand negativity, reviews, etc. But if users are being removed from our standard journey and we're only focusing on that actual conversion keyword, but the downstream bottom of funnel one, we need to make sure we're tracking and cognizant of the keywords further up that user journey, because it's almost like being at the bottom of a river and you run out of water, but you're not aware there's been a blockage upstream for a week. And you're going to have then a week once you've removed a blockage of water coming back down. It's just creating more issues for yourself, not having that wider visibility up the funnel itself.
Yeah, you went just over 20 minutes there without a Dan analogy. That's quite impressive. Just to wrap up then. So with as an SEO, what should I be looking out for in terms of creating activities for AI overview optimization strategies?
Okay, so I think the core things to do and to kind of put into place as part of the strategy and implement tactics over the next period is you firstly need to understand your segments and user journey. Most companies will already have this data, will already have this information at hand, already be able to draw on this for you. But as SEOs, we need to become more interactive with it. We need to become more aware of it and effectively use it more. We need to then start understanding how users actually come to our brand. Is it through LinkedIn? Is it through Reddit? As the advertising will make you believe, well, the B2B decision makers are now. Then how do we actually start building that mental availability and index across the right platforms there? We need to go and speak to SDRs and sales teams and understand the user friction points, and then take those and go back to the product teams and understand how the benefits and features we're building directly speak to those friction points, because that enables better conversion content. And when we are making the touch points, actually stuff that resonates and can encourage people along more the funnel and narrative we want them to. Taking that step back, look at the wider TAM and ICPs and understand how segments, content, and brand actually creates those meaningful touch points. So a good example is working with an email provider whose one of the main USPs was privacy. How much of the Google market and Gmail market could they tap into based on privacy being a USP or benefit that users value, and actually understanding what that value tree kind of looks like. And kind of just to wrap up the last kind of term, that would be to identify and monitor all the search terms across the funnel, understand how they're connected and how users kind of move around. I mean, ultimately, make sure you're monitoring and tracking AI overviews, not just at the conversion point or keywords which drive the highest traffic, but all the way up that chain for key touch points. So, but not just monitoring to say, oh, they're there, but actually looking to see what they're saying and where they're taking things, because Google will, this is a big assumption, be including information which they see as being the best fit for that query. And it might not be the direct messaging that you're trying to put forward. So there's a learning curve here as well as being able to actually optimize for the generative engine.
Great, a lot of really good insights there, Dan.
Thank you, Holly. We will be taking the transcript on this and making it make sense a little bit more and publishing on the SALT blog. When we put this through to YouTube as a publication, we will have a link on there as well. But I guess kind of want to finish off by saying thank you to everybody for joining us for this webinar, for getting involved in the chat, and anyone who's watching this back on playback on YouTube. And also thank you to Holly for joining me today.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.